Then police, like while the students were marching towards the parliament, they start lathi charging, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, if it wasn't that bad, they used uh, batons with nails on them,
Holy shit.
with nails on them, literal nails on them. They also used pellet
It's
guns, which is forbidden.
Jeez.
right.
They used expired tear gas, expired, not current ones,
Sure.
expired.
Yeah.
So
That's shocking.
so hundreds of students got brutally injured, like really injured. Like one, I think one also, well, I think one of them died. One of them died in the hospital. Many got brutally injured, and lot lot hundreds of people ended up with a broken head, ribs, legs, everything. So it was brutal. It was brutal. It was a brutal sight to behold.
'69. Did the kids still say nice?
They
After
do
that?
They have to.
very nice. Yeah.
Okay.
But
They have to. Okay.
69 has been overshadowed by 67, so
Yeah.
69 doesn't get that much love anymore, which is sad
We will
because
look. To be determined, though. Like I feel like in 20 years we need to see like did 6-7 rival 69?
Persist.
69?
Was it durable?
Yeah.
Did it maintain its celebrity, or is it washed? We'll see.
69 is
Yeah.
69 is definitely durable. Listen, so it is hip replacement episode number 69. We're here with Soham Chakraborty, who's calling in from Calcutta of all places. This is our second conversation, Kyle, with a correspondent in India, and so Soham, really nice to have you here.
Yeah, it's lovely to be here as well.
So,
Welcome.
Kyle, as usual, I have no idea why we're talking to Soham, except that I know he's important in our sphere in some way. Will you please
Yes,
give him the intro he deserves?
absolutely. So Soham is a social media strategist and writer who is very funny and like very plugged into online culture, meme culture, etc. I believe, well, I definitely know we got connected from LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yeah.
Like yes, and like you have a very similar posting style to me in that it's like this place sucks and we got to make the most of it. And, like let's just fucking like shit post on here. And your posts are very good, very funny, and like for a long time I was like we got to like get this guy on the show and like talk to him. So I'm so like you're of a similar mindset and talking about similar things in similar ways. So welcome. Excited to have you.
Welcome. So, Soham, one of the things that we talked about in the sort of preparation for the show was you wanted to talk a little bit about why LinkedIn is the best social network. This
could
feels
have
like
been.
an apropos. It could have been. Okay, gotcha. So anyway, that feels like an apropos introduction. So please, sally
Yeah.
forth. Tell us what you think.
See, for me, LinkedIn has a huge untapped potential that the people behind LinkedIn still hasn't been able to tap, and they're still trying to do that with the latest seems like AI slot button. They have tapped into the psyche of the youth, psyche of the demographic, because of all the sites of all the social media platforms, LinkedIn I think has the like most uh, mm, disgusting slop. I'm using the word disgusting because it is. Because it is. Because I was trying to find a synonym. Because I was trying to find a synonym of the word, but it's disgusting is that it's what it is. Because it's very repelling.
Yeah.
It's very repelling. Because some days when I open LinkedIn, because these days I'm not very much active on LinkedIn, but I am trying to be.
Okay.
But lately, for the longest time, LinkedIn has been repelling for the most of the people,
Yeah.
except for people like who are huge into, I don't know, whatever they post, like the
Yeah.
very corporate stuff. because I'm
Cringe
not in,
culture.
yeah,
I mean, look, there's a couple of reasons. There's a couple of reasons to use LinkedIn over any others, historically, right? One is because you're looking for a job and you are
yeah,
trying to find people who are relevant to your job search, or alternately because you're trying to memorialize your own success. And I feel like people use it as a scrapbook as much as anything else
It's
in
fair.
that regard. The problem is that, once we've seen 75 pictures of your gorgeous labradoodle, we really don't ever need to see another picture of your gorgeous labradoodle. And unfortunately, because we're
Well,
incentivized to continue posting, we get nothing but labradoodles all the
really, yeah.
time, corporate
well,
labradoodles.
it's a funny thing and very LinkedIn thing is that like people do want to see the labradoodle, which is why why Instagram and Facebook have been so successful. But people don't want to see the labradoodle as a vehicle to talk about like B2B sales. They don't want that. Like that is, I
They
think,
don't
the
want that,
difference.
yeah.
Is like I want to see the labradoodle. I want to see labradoodle every day, but I don't want to see a labradoodle that is a Trojan dog to talk about like SaaS and B2B and
Yeah,
like like I don't give a shit. Let me just see the dog. I'll like you more. But I don't have to hear the work
pretty
slot.
much.
But
But I think that's the most notorious part of LinkedIn because people will have to talk about what they do, right? And
yeah,
LinkedIn has this very corporate way of uh, bragging because
Yeah.
it is bragging about
Yeah,
their
of course.
work.
yeah,
Yeah, and when it started, it was all right because sure, you're talking about your work. People get to know what you're doing and
Yeah.
they're celebrating your success. But I think after a point of time, when you're just thumping your own chest, I think
hmm
it gets to a point. It gets to a point.
it gets
Well,
to a point.
That's why the sorry, I'm cutting you off.
no, please, Sam, go ahead.
No. That's why the whole alt LinkedIn culture started, right? The whole weird LinkedIn culture started because people were tired of the
Right,
whole, yeah, my Labrador fell sick and this is what it taught me about B2B sales. Because nobody wants to read
right.
that. My Labrador vomited on my bed and this is what it taught me about B2B resilience or whatever they talk about. Because this is the kind of post I get. So I think that's why the whole alt LinkedIn culture evolved, like and it spread like it got momentum last year, like in the middle of 2025. There was this
hmm
whole hashtag weird LinkedIn thing started trending, and that's also because more and more Gen Z population, they are trying to separate
Right,
themselves from their work because for the
Yeah.
longest time work has been an integral part of your identity. So much so that I mean, for the longest time, I mean, historically speaking, like your work has been a integral part of your identity. So much so that you like there are surnames that that
mm,
that are historically
mm,
associated with your work, right?
right,
But now I think like early millennials and sorry, late millennials and Gen Zs, I think they're slowly dissociating themselves from their work and trying to build their own presence that is
Yeah.
outside of work. At the same time, they because it's LinkedIn, right? It's a professional platform at the end of the day. It's not your Instagram
mm,
or Facebook or Snap or TikTok because it's a professional platform. You have to talk about your work, but you also like you can also you also can't be miserable about it. Like you can't be a miserable
right.
person who makes work their entire identity. I think it's nice to see LinkedIn evolving into that sort of platform. But
Yeah.
their
Well,
algo
I look. I just to sorry to cut you off. I agree with you. I think though, you don't have to talk about work, right? Like you can use LinkedIn as Tumblr, you can use LinkedIn as Twitter, you
yeah,
could
Yeah,
use LinkedIn as Instagram if you want to. And I think that's the bit that is exciting about it. And to your point about it potentially being able to be the most interesting platform, the latitude that you get there does allow for you to for it to be an interesting platform. The challenge I think ultimately is like whether or not people feel comfortable showing up there that way.
Well, that is like that's the really interesting thing about LinkedIn, and to exactly to your point, so and to your point too, Ben, is that like it's this is going to sound victim blaming, but like it's a little bit of a failure of imagination by the users because like all the tools are there to use
That's
it in
right.
a way it's not there to be used for. But even like weird LinkedIn is still using the codes of LinkedIn. Like it's not
LinkedIn,
pushing
yeah.
the format or the genre. And like it's very funny because like it's of a kind of sort of like philosophical aesthetic creations right now that are basically begging the machine to prove your humanity when it's like don't beg it, just like force it into submission. And like forcing to submission is like using it in a way that is it's not intended for versus
Right.
Yeah, pretty
being,
much.
you know, these jokes and or like look at me as a person on LinkedIn versus like using LinkedIn as a site of abstraction.
Yeah. I want to. Okay, so I think there's something interesting at play here around that the use of the platform and the generational elements to it, and I have a sort of an odd way of getting into this conversation, but I did want to bring something up. I finally read in preparation for this interview for this episode the Gen Z doesn't want jobs. I don't blame them piece, the New York Times opinion piece
Yeah.
by
Mm-hmm.
Emmy Neatfeld, and I don't know if I've ever read anything more millennial in my entire life. But it struck me. It really like the metaphorical land acknowledgments involved here were just. It was like she was bending over backwards to include every possible like consideration, which it made me a little nuts. But it also signaled to me something that I saw more than a decade ago when I was at Vice, which was like, oh, this is marking, I think, the moment at which Gen Z has crossed the Rubicon in terms of being the most important thing for people to discuss on a sort of socio-generational, socio-political kind of spectrum. And I don't mean it's this article per se, but I think that
Right.
this is emblematic of the fact that it's like I'm going to put all of my millennial foibles onto Gen Z because Gen Z is the thing that people have to talk about. Really, I want to keep talking about my millennial thing, but actually it's
Totally.
Gen Z. And so anyway, but I wondered as you guys looked as you read this article and the other one about just about millennial burnout generally, the TikTok things. What struck you? What struck you here as like macros?
I think for me, millennial, it was very like it was it was only a matter of time before this happened, right? Because it was
Yeah,
only a
of
matter
course.
of time. Because it was only
Mm-hmm.
a matter of time. Because for millennials, the path had been laid out by the previous generations. Like you go to college,
Right.
you perform well in college, and then there's college to job pipeline, job to you climb up the corporate ladder, and you progress. But it all came at a cost of your own mental and physical health, right? Because uh, when the company is paying for you, I'm getting a bit, I'm digressing a bit, but when the company is paying for your Mediclaim, and this like like you're also like it's also making you sick. It's also making you sick, and in a way, it's an odd vicious cycle. I think it becomes because your job makes you sick, and then because you are sick, you have to avail the Mediclaim by the
You have to have healthcare.
Right.
insurance by a company, and so you can't quit your job, but because you need the insurance, and but you need to quit your job so that you can feel better. So, and I think this whole pipeline, this was this was a very comfortable pipeline because once again I'm digressing a bit. Like, have you guys seen that famous Fight Club tweet? Not that one. Oh, why was the previous generation like this? Oh, I had a cushy job. I had a stable 9 to 5 job. Like, have you seen that? Because it was very popular.
I
So,
don't know if I have actually.
Maybe I did.
oh,
I don't know.
okay. So,
Keep
so,
going
so
now.
the entire premise of the Fight Club was that yeah, your job is making you sick. You need to quit a job. Like it's
Oh,
is
oh,
the
oh,
nine to
oh.
five thing.
Sorry, so you're referring to Fight Club the movie, and you're saying
Movie.
that's essentially Tyler
Oh, yeah.
Durden's underlying thesis. Okay, yes, of course we're familiar with that.
And
Okay, gotcha.
yeah, and the Gen Z twist. I'm calling it a twist because even back in the 90s, a corporate job came with a lot of perks. That's why people ran after the corporate jobs because it
Yeah.
came with medical insurance, it came with a bunch of other things like dinners, this and that, uh, lot of stuff. But the, now now the jobs don't even pay you well, let alone your medical insurance. So now the Gen Z, like, especially the early Gen Zs, like the folks who have just graduated or like folks who are very much into their early career, so they're very confused because what was so bad about it? What was so bad? Because we are struggling to have a stable 9 to 5 job. They had like 90s kid millennials, they had a stable 9 to 5 job, and yet they were complaining. Yet they were complaining. And at the same time, yeah, yet they were complaining. They made a whole ass movie about it. But
Right.
now the Gen Z, they don't even have a job, let alone like being complaining about that. So that's why like they made a whole meme. Oh, I have a 9 to 5 job. Oh, I have a job that pays my medical insurance. Yet I'm so miserable. I'm gonna join this fight club and all that. So I think the 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 millennial burnout was due, and
Sure.
this AI boom only accelerated that. Maybe the burnout would
Right.
have happened in 5 years, 10 years, but it's happening now. It's happening now, right now, in front of our own eyes. And it's also funny because the Gen Zs are burnt out as well. Gen Zs are
Right.
burnt out as well because and which is funny because at the age of 2021, you shouldn't be burnt out. Like no one
No.
should be burnt out at the
Well,
age of 2021.
But okay, so Kyle, this is where we frequently circle in the conversation, right? Like this big my feeling is that the big shift that we're seeing in media that I just described, where Gen Z is now at the center of the circle, and where everybody's attention is focused there, allows its most extreme concerns to be amplified in a way that is certainly true, or probably true anyway, but not necessarily representative of everything else, and or of the actual reality. In other words, we're talking about the loudest minority of the generation, rather than the generation as a whole, right? And so I wonder to what extent you see any counter indicators, or if your feeling is, as a millennial looking backwards, like, yeah, these Gen Z kids, they do have it a lot tougher than I did.
Well, I think there's a few different things going on. I think number one, the conversation is sort of, at least around millennials, it's being like a bit like they on their own behalf. Like I think they're trying to use, say, Gen Z speak and or just larger cultural speak to talk through like midlife crises, which I think is like, I feel like you guys should know about that. Like this is like a big cultural thing. You're reaching your 40s, you're in your 40s. Like this is like the time where these things happen. So like that to me is like, we can call it burnout, we can call it whatever we want, but like that seems like a bit of a rebranding to sort of like sound closer to a Gen Z thing to seem relevant, which like to the point of the New York
Right.
Times piece is like, this is a quality about millennials that I like, but it's to their detriment, is that they sort of have a, toxic is the wrong word, but it's like a toxic, like seeing themselves in other people. Like it's like a goodness, like they just like to their own detriment.
You know,
they're like,
if let me just let me introduce a term here. I want. We used to complain. Me and the old guys used to complain that we were surrounded by people who were relentlessly worthy. Meaning, like, it was constantly about trying to demonstrate your,
right,
like circumspection, compassion, worthiness, etc.
yeah,
Is that sort of what you're getting at?
kind of, but it's like, I think it's more like relentless solidarity, perhaps.
Okay.
Like,
But I mean,
it's more,
I think they're
it's
vectors of the same
related.
thing. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. Like it's related, but like it's this sort of like we are in solidarity, like I'm with you. And like that can be true, but also like I think it's probably more valuable to recognize the differences to get to the similarities, because then that makes it a more stronger case of like why are you in your 20s feeling like me in my 40s? Like that is a
Yeah.
problem. And I think most people, most millennials that is, and I would say it's probably depreciation after that, would look at the situation of Gen Z and the economy now and be like, this is really fucked up. Like this, you shouldn't be going through this. But then I'm also going through this. And so like that I do think is related.
Yeah.
And the same circumstances, like the job market probably for a lot of millennials down is just like dog shit. And like that
Well,
is
okay.
not generational.
I,
That I
I I
think is
think
just
is
economic.
the solidarity that millennial uh, gives to the provides to the Gen Z is what differentiates millennials from the previous generation, because previous generation
Yeah,
always used to blame the victims because, oh,
totally.
you're not working hard enough, oh, you are not doing this, you're not doing that, we had it harder,
Mhm.
and all that. The boomer generation and the in between generation. I think millennial relate to both the worlds in the most odd possible way, because they're sandwiched in between two generations. They're sandwiched in between two generations, and that's why, like as Carl mentioned, like they have a habit of seeing themselves in other people. Uh,
Hmm.
and as Ben mentioned, they like it's almost like millennials are still, like even after so many years, they're still struggling to find their own unique identity. They're still
Absolutely.
they're
Yeah.
still struggling to find their own unique identity, because what what separates culture, like intergenerational or generation rather I should say, are the cultures, right? But Gen Z culture and millennial culture, they juxtapose at some point, right? So you
Hmm.
can't, because Gen Z relate to both the hardcore Gen Z, uh, should I say, culture, media, as well as the millennial media, from the films from the 2000s, the music from the 2000s, 1990s, and and so with the millennials, so millennials are still in a weird uh, identity crisis. I don't say
Hmm.
that midlife crisis, because a midlife
Oh,
crisis start a midlife crisis, like I believe a midlife crisis start like when you have everything, or rather when you have figured out some parts of your life and you're still confused, and that's when the identity crisis happens. But for millennial, the the crisis is very like instead of instead of like they're looking outwards, right, instead of
mm,
inwards.
Right.
They're looking
yeah.
outwards.
It, that's
I'm
probably
not
true.
sure
I
if I'm
think.
making much
Yeah,
sense,
well,
but
I
I
think
think.
you get
I
it.
mean, I
Yeah.
think. I think what you're getting at ultimately is like the I mean, Gen Z, the loudest voices among Gen Z claim to be miserable because of the chips being stacked against them. That has been true with every generation. The millennials are now confronting their own obsolescence, like forecasted obsolescence,
Right.
right? Which has happened to every generation and is going forward. Um, Gen X, and Kyle showed this Axios piece about the how Gen X is least confident about the future.
starting
And
again.
the interesting
Yeah.
thing about that article was not that it implied Gen X was least confident about the future. It's Gen X's consumer confidence, and underscoring the fact that if Gen X drops out of the spending market, then we have an economic problem, because we Gen X have amassed a certain amount of wealth, or the wealth
Wealth.
transfer from the boomers is starting
Right.
to turn down. What all of this underscores to me is like these are problems that are consistent generation to generation through any
Totally.
cohort, through any life stage. And what we constantly, or what the media constantly does, and what we try to engage in dialogue with is the notion that though there is a generational lens or a generational wrapper, what we're really talking about is a problem that, you know, everybody has confronted, and that the highest heights of my generation were or are literally the masters of the universe now, right? That's your Elon Musks and your Sergey Brins and your Eric Schmidts and whomever. On the other hand, the lowest lows of my generation, sadly, most have passed away, right? Like they were the sad sack cases, and I don't think you can take either of those as like true generational indicators. So anyway,
well, to that, well, really quickly, like I think the one thing that is, I think you're right. Like I think this is more age or like, you know, age demographic versus generation. I do think one thing that is unique to millennials in this, and to your point, Sam, as well, is that like they do have a bit of an identity crisis, and I do think that they like are seeking. They're coming from a place of fear in a way, and I think that's always been their point of departure. And I think at least in this conversation with Gen Z, they're really scarred for how they got made fun of in the early 2020s.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I think that has really painted, like that story, for example, like it really has painted how they interact with Gen Z. And I think Gen Z is softening their relationship to millennials. I think they see like, oh, actually, like you guys, you weren't too far off of what we should have been thinking about. And I think they're
okay.
Yeah.
So nature's healing then, basically. Okay,
it seems like it. I hope so.
Well, I mean, look, you know, again, this is our thesis here is that the intergenerational dialogue will ultimately be a super positive thing for everybody.
Absolutely.
Speaking of that, though, I think, you know, so one of the things that's important about our having the conversation with you is that we get through your perspective the, you know, parts of the world that Kyle and I are not interfacing with on a regular basis, right? We talk a lot about this being the American internet, but that ultimately, you know, countries and constituencies all over the place are influencing it. You know, we talked a little bit last week about the cockroach junta party, but I'd love to get just. Would you explain that to us and to the listeners to sort of let us know where everything is now, how it's, and tell as much or as little as you want about the history of the thing, but it's like as a youth movement and as a symbol of youth populism, I think it's really fascinating.
Yeah, because the Cockroach Janta Party movement has been one of the largest youth movement India has seen in the last 2 decades. Of course, there was this farmer protest during 2020, in 2020, but that was that mostly involved major sections of farmers, like a different society, it's a different community, the community of farmers, because it mostly involved farmers, and the 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 controversy was about the farmer bills that were passed or that they didn't pass because of the protest. But for the cockroach protest is unique in its own way because it mobilized all sections of youth, like from the lower rung to the upper rung. It mobilized all sections of the youth. So it was very unique. It was very unique, and it is very unique to the Indian demographic because since 2014, since the BJP, the ruling party that came to power, their main agenda has been very divisive. Very divisive. In a way, their agenda has been to divide and conquer, pretty much. That's what they have been doing. They're spreading hatred towards the minorities, towards different sections of the society. They're painting the minorities as these outsiders who do not belong to this country, and to a certain and to a lot, they have been successful. They have been hugely successful, and their success is owed to the lot of things, because this government this spent a huge, like a comically huge chunk of their budget on marketing and PR, like a huge. I'm talking about huge. Okay, like 7,000 crores they spent last year. uh, last year on marketing, like like obscene amount of money, like some
Wow.
like obscene amount of money on PR, and that's strongest uh, point of this strongest part of this party, because they have been hugely PR based. Okay, if you take out the PR away from them, they will crumble, and it's only coming to the light now. I think a lot of people have figured it out long time ago, but I think the people are opening to their eyes to this finally, because there's this infamous BJP IT cell. So basically, what they do, like, are you aware of China's Tencent army?
Like Tencent, the company?
Not not exactly the company, but so basically, China has this huge bot army, like a lot of people.
Okay,
Oh
gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
not
yeah,
didn't know the term, but can imagine
yeah, yeah.
A
the
great
So
yeah.
term.
so it's so yeah, it's called Tencent because they're paid 10 cents to do all that. So it's also the same way in India. So they have, like, the BJP government has this huge machinery, huge IT machinery that that that's active everywhere, from especially on Twitter and on WhatsApp, and that's how they have been able to control the narrative among the boomers and millennials, mostly boomers. So
Are there
the
specific spaces like that they're reaching the boomers? Like, is it, let's say, Facebook? Like, where are the spaces where that's happening? Because like that's really curious that they're controlling that narrative and it's specifically reaching boomers. Like, is that online? Is it on
no
TV?
no
Like,
they, no their target audience has always been boomers.
okay,
Their target audience has always been boomers. So boomers and then millennials, but mostly boomers,
wow,
because Modi
Boomers
is what,
vote.
like,
right.
because they're the most, like, at least in India, they're the most gullible because they are the least tech native people, right?
Hmm.
They're the least tech native people, and when when and WhatsApp has a huge audience base in India, and Meta
Mm.
has the largest customer. I think largest or second largest, maybe most likely largest. Meta has the largest uh, audience in India, like
Hmm.
largest, like a three, like 2 billion or something. I'm not exactly sure the number, but has the
Yeah.
largest audience in India. So along with Meta, especially Facebook and WhatsApp and Twitter, they have been controlling the like online narrative for years. Like Modi is celebrated as this 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 uh, this second coming of uh, Vishnu, which is equivalent to the second coming of Jesus. So 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 so
Yeah,
so
See,
yeah, yeah.
I didn't realize that
not like mega.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize that he was cast in. I knew that a lot of his rule was based around Hindu nationalism, but not that he had been sort of cloaked in the idea of actual, like that he had been deified in that way.
Yeah, I didn't know that
They,
either.
like, he has been recently they legit built a temple where he would be he'd be worshipped as
Right. So
the
very
Oh my
idol.
Trumpian then.
god.
Very Trumpian.
Very
Yeah.
Trumpian, like straight out of the episode of the boys. So
I mean, Trump is
Well,
definitely
okay.
taking notes from him. It's like I feel like they are copying each other's
they're
homework.
very chummy. They're very chummy.
Yeah,
Like all three,
obviously,
like
yeah,
Well,
Trump,
okay.
Ben, and Modi.
yeah.
Well, so okay. So then the Abhijit Dipke, is it
Dipke.
Dipke comes in and begins this sort of meme based
So
movement around Cockroach Janta Party.
this started because the Chief Justice in India, the Chief Justice of India, like the highest judicial custodian, he said that all these unemployed uh, uh, activists and uh, are like cockroaches. They're questioning the government. They're filing RTIs, right to information, that is. They're fighting RTIs because they're unemployed. They have no jobs. So that was a very insensitive thing to say, because this government created record uh, number of unemployment. Like the
Right.
figure went up during this government era, and they slashed down education budget. They cut down college funding. They this like did all sorts of notorious stuff. So and when someone from so it's important to mention that uh, I mean it's a bit controversial. Like it's an open secret in a way that all the judicial bodies in India, all the judicial executive bodies, bureaucracy has been infiltrated by the BJP government. So,
Mhm.
like you can't exactly like they can't make independent judgments anymore for the most part.
Sure.
So,
Sounds like a certain American court too, but keep going.
yeah. So, so, and this the Chief Justice of India, he 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 made that remark, and that of course angered a huge population on online, and then Dipke came in and made this satirical cockroach party because he compared them to cockroaches. They're like unemployed cockroaches. They do all this, just to create chaos. And he basically he said unemployed and they do this. So he made this satirical party, and overnight it gained huge number of followers.
Right.
And within a week it beat the official Instagram handle of BJP, which is funny because it had
Wow.
like within a week, I think less than a week, within 6 days, I think it surpassed the 21 million benchmark of mark on Instagram.
Shit.
Yeah,
I didn't
21
realize
million,
that.
21 million benchmark in like 6 days, and that gained momentum. And during that time, uh, the 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 paper, paper for the medical entrance exam in India, which is very huge thing. It's a huge thing in India. Like all the examinations, like India has a huge examination culture. Like for like it's a huge industry. Like edtech industry is huge in India, and it revolves around all the government exams, like all the entrance exam, government jobs, government
Hmm.
colleges, government all sectors. So so when the paper for the medical entrance exam got leaked, and the exam was suspended. The exam was suspended, and 21 students committed suicide. 21 students committed suicide
Jeez.
because as many as uh, 1.2 1.2 to 1.2 to 1.3 million students appear for the exams every year. And
Wow.
guess how many seats there are? Any
Tell
guesses?
us.
Oh.
And any
Half a
guesses?
million.
2,000. I don't know.
No, it's not that less. It's the government's is like 60,000, just 60,000.
That's
They're just
still
six.
so
Wow.
low.
So
Then
5%.
1.2.
Five
Holy
5% of the
shit.
number of people that would like to
Yeah,
sit it.
yeah. So
Wow.
it's hugely competitive. It's hugely competitive, and students they sacrifice their teenage years in India to prepare for this exam.
Mhm.
They sacrifice their youth, the precious years of their youth to prepare for these exams. Many like it's the because medical like medical is a very doctor is a very sought after profession in India because
Sure.
mostly due to stability. I think it's
Mhm.
everywhere. Like it's a very sought after profession because of the
Yes.
Right.
stability. So so students don't uh, hesitate to lose the precious years of their life to prepare for this exam in the hope that they would make it, which is funny because the chances are so low. Chances are
Right.
comically low. So when this happened, and this is not the first time this happened during this government's regime, it this has happened multiple times, multiple times. Okay, so paper leak, like the whole paper leak, has become a whole industry under this government,
Hmm.
and a lot of reports have shown that the people within the system are actively participating in this racket.
Right.
Of course, they are.
Providing
And
favoritism or
Yeah.
yeah,
Of course they
guaranteeing
are.
yeah,
slots or whatever.
yeah. So when this happened, 21 students support like committed suicide. So So this is the Cockroach Janata Party movement. So they took it to the ground. Dipke came back. He was in Boston during that time. He was in Boston. He came back from Boston, and there was speculation that he would be arrested from the airport itself because this government is so not a fan of dissent. It's worse
Right. Sure.
than in the States. Okay, it's worse. Like the U.S. mind can't comprehend this kind of
Yeah. Well, this is why it's
yeah,
important for us to hear about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
anyway, please continue.
yeah. So Dipki came from the States, from Boston, and landed in Delhi, and the movement started. And of course, like many other things, the missionary, the state missionary, propaganda missionary, immediately got to work, and they're spreading all sorts of misinformation and disinformation and all sorts of uh, lies about his agenda, that he has ties with some opposition party, that he briefly worked with an opposition party, but it's of course it's an opposition party. It's not nothing serious.
Yeah.
So they made it out to be a huge deal, and during the initial days there were not so many people who joined him, but later I think the protest started on 20th June. Okay, so the like there's the designated site protest site Jantar Mantar uh, in Delhi. So it's a designated protest site,
Yeah.
and they took permission and everything, and they started protesting, and slowly over the period of 1 month, the the movement gained so much momentum that it shook the government to the core. So much
Yeah.
so that for the first time in a long time, their whole state machinery, propaganda machinery fell flat because so many people participated in the protest. So
Wow.
they couldn't come up with any sort of propaganda to malign the protest. And
Right.
because as soon as they're putting out, it was getting debunked. Getting debunked. It was getting spread. So
It's
so
amazing.
it became the like the state versus the citizens.
Right.
And
Well,
and
it's because
and
they found enough common ground that it's no longer the loud minority. It's now this is
it
the
Right.
the
it
the, the
yeah,
majority, so to speak.
the
Yeah.
whole youth, irrespective of their caste, creed, and everything, religion, they united,
Yeah.
and people started going to the protest site, and this protest site became a huge third space of a thing. There were music,
Right.
they were dancing, there were like people were cosplaying, people were singing, dancing, they were raising slogans, they were raising uh, placards and
Sure.
signboards which are like referencing memes and
Hmm.
pop culture. It was one of a kind because for the longest time, protest in India has been very serious. Has been very serious. Of course, there were humorous elements here and there, but this is the first time that that the movement became very satirical
Yeah.
Yeah.
in its very core sense. Like it started as a satirical party, and the Gen Z, they embraced the satire of it, the absurdity of it. So
Hmm.
they started making memes about the whole situation, like as with most of the things. So that happened, and on 20th, when they were supposed to march to the parliament. Okay, it's important to mention that during this 1 month, a lot has
Mm.
happened. Like a lot happened. Like Sonam Wangchuk, who is a very prominent scientist and activist in India, he joined on a hunger strike. He joined the
Oh.
cause, and yeah, he he called a hunger strike in solidarity. So he was hungry, and still like he fasted for like what, 18 days or 19 days, if
Mm.
I'm not very wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, he fasted for 19 days. And despite that, the BJP missionary was still spreading so much misinformation, which is inhuman. Like they were calling him
Mhm.
Chinese agent because he was from Ladakh, which borders China. So he called him Chinese agent. They called him Chinese agent and whatnot, and said like, yeah, he's secretly having his food in the washroom, and all sorts of like pathetic stuff. So on 20th, when they were supposed, and still government didn't respond. Not a single person from the government responded. Okay, they continued like but they continued to malign the protest. They continued to say that the youth are unemployed, the youth who are good enough, they won't do it. So they did that. So much so that during this time, the re-examination happened. It is the examination, the medical examination, which is entrance examination, which is cancelled.
Sure.
It happened during this time, and 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 they got the toppers of the exam, like one or two or three toppers from the exam, and they made these kids, their spokespeople in a way that, yeah, we didn't go to the protest and we made good use of this time that we got. We made good time of like we made use of this time that we got, and because of that we succeeded. And it was like government's way of saying, yeah, fuck you.
Right.
We don't
Yeah,
care.
for sure.
Yeah, we don't care. And see this and these kids, they were trolled by the other kids.
Well, so okay, so
It's very so sad. And
do you
then on 20th, the brutality unleashed while they were marching to the parliament.
got it?
And so much brutality was unleashed that 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 everyone was shook to the core. Everyone was shook to the core because it was a peaceful protest. They were not doing anything.
Right.
So the day prior to the protest, like there are a lot of independent reporters, ground reporters were covering the protest, and they were very active on Instagram because the mainstream media has been hijacked by the government. So the mainstream media was barely covering the protest, despite
Right.
like 1 million people joining the protest, and people came from all parts of India, people from all like youth from all parts of India came to the protest. And it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing because
Yeah.
people not only came from came to the protest site, they were also uh, sending in donations, because Dipki, he's a smart guy. He knew that there'd be questions on funding, and they still have been raising questions on how they are getting funding and about the funding of the protest. And they Dipki said, like, don't send us money, you can send us stuff. So the people from all across India, they started sending in food, sanitation products, everything. And it was like for the last, like in 1 month, it became a very beautiful like community thing. Like for the first
Yeah.
time in a long time, people came together and they bonded. And so on 20th, when the march was supposed to happen, the day before, things started to get fishy. So the day prior, they brought in some broken cars, damaged cars. Okay, they brought in the cars so that they could later
Classic.
blame on the protesters.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
they brought in a truck full of stones, which they later used to pelt the students. They brought in the stones, not the students. They brought in the
Yeah, yeah.
stones. Yeah. So
No, we
on the day of protest, the police, they removed the name tag.
This
Name
is
tag.
yeah, so much like
They
of
removed their name
course.
tag. Like most of them removed their name tags, and police, like while the students were marching towards the parliament, they started lathi charging. And it
Mhm.
wasn't if it wasn't that bad, they used uh, batons with nails on them,
Holy shit.
literal nails on them. They also used pellet
it's
guns, which is forbidden.
Jeez.
right.
They used expired tear gas, not current ones,
Sure.
expired.
Yeah.
So
That's shocking.
so hundreds of students got brutally injured, like really injured. Like I think one also, well, I think one of them died. One of them died in
Hmm.
the hospital. Many got brutally injured. and lot lot hundreds of people ended up with a broken head, ribs, legs, everything. So it was brutal. It was brutal. It was a brutal sight to behold.
Yeah. What?
Is
What? Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
well, just really quickly, because like this, like all very fascinating, all like super informative, and like it does seem very centralized. Obviously, the action, quote unquote, is through Gen Z community. I'm curious, like, in the shadow of this, in the aftermath, like, has it actually, because the media is so controlled by the state, has it actually helped to create cross generational or like outside of Gen Z? Are people listening to what's
Yeah,
happening and like, oh, actually,
yeah,
this is a larger problem? Well,
yeah.
that's
Because
great then.
yeah, because millennials immediately joined the cause because they have been on the
Right.
receiving end too.
Totally.
So the millennials immediately joined the cause, and people across generations they supported cause. Like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't only the Gen Z who joined the protest. Like people as old as 70, 80, they joined the protest.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there are videos of it. I will send you if I think I have. I will send you. I will send you
Okay.
some videos.
Yeah. Do
So
you?
Yeah.
So my understanding of it was that the Chief Justice who made the original cockroach comment has now been removed or resigned or forced
no,
out
he
or
no, he
no.
hasn't removed. No, the chief education minister has resigned. He has been
Ah,
made to
okay, got it.
resign.
So the justice is
Yeah,
still in place, and I guess
yeah, yeah, yeah.
then so but
And
the
no, and here's the funny part. Here's the funny part. So after of course the police denied of all the brutality. Of course they did that. They immediately denied the brutality, despite all of the brutality being captured in camera and videos. So the next day, the same CGI, the same Chief Justice said that we don't have time to look at these videos. We have better things to do.
God.
God, all right. Well, developing story then, I guess, in that case. Well, so thank you for running that through with us in detail. There were many aspects of that story that I was not aware of,
Yeah.
despite having read some things about it. Clearly, not enough. So we appreciate that. We've got to draw the episode to a close, but before we do that, where can people follow you or find you to then not necessarily continue the story because you have no obligation to report upon it, but just generally to follow your work and to engage with you?
I am uh, I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm also yeah,
The best platform.
Shout out LinkedIn.
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty
Anyway, go
active
ahead.
on LinkedIn, and I am planning like I am like it's in works. So I am planning to start my Substack newsletter
Good.
soon.
Oh,
Like
nice.
maybe I will like I'm writing an article on the surveillance that the police used during the protest. So I'm
That's
working on that
great.
article. So I think it will come out hopefully next week. So
Good.
I will be available. Like will be available on Substack,
On
and
Substack too.
I'm also on Instagram, but I haven't posted anything much there. I don't post much there.
All right. So LinkedIn is the platform of choice to begin with,
Yeah,
but we've
yeah.
got
Keep an eye on Substack.
Yeah.
yes, indeed, Substack coming out. Well, so listen, thank you for taking the time with us here on Hip Replacement. We really appreciate it. And, obviously, as the story unfolds, we hope you'll keep us posted so that we can also, shine
Sure.
a light on it and
Mm-hmm.
generally your work, period. So, am you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm trying to be active on other platforms this year. I think that this has been my goal for the remaining of the year to be active on other platforms because I'm trying to be active on other platforms because as much as I I don't like putting myself out there. Like I don't like putting my face out there much, but I'm trying to change that this year.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
kicking
so
it off
so
with this podcast, it seems, to
yeah,
unlock this era. So welcome.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm planning to do that. So let's see how it
Good.
pans out.
That'll
Awesome.
be great.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll keep posted. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to Hip Replacement. We will be back again next week with another episode. But in the meantime, look out for Soham on LinkedIn. Look out for Kyle on Substack at The Trend Report. Look out for me on Substack at Sick. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.